Good afternoon, everybody. We are happy to be here, and we welcome you to our panel session this afternoon. From the introductions from MC Ram, you've heard who we are and what we do. So our topic of discussion for today, as Ram has briefed it, is on delivering the next generation user and customer experience for the customer of the digital transformation era. And welcome, Raju.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so maybe just to put this into context as we begin our discussion for today, we will do a little bit of definition so that we carry you along with us. We will look at some of the channels of service delivery or the touch points that we want to discuss, and some of the emerging technologies that are now coming up and that are being used within the customer experience space. So just to set this again, the ball rolling, I will refer to a survey that was done by Kenya Bankers Association in the course of last year that was targeting the banking customer in Kenya. And one of the areas that they were measuring, this whole area of innovation and technology, was around mobile banking uptake. And it was interesting to note that out of the banking customers that we have and the customers who were surveyed, who are about 33,000, we actually had about 67% of those customers who are on mobile banking. So if you could just extrapolate that across the population of the customers who hold accounts in Kenya, we have almost, it was coming to about 44 million, but given that many customers are multi-banked, that was coming to about 10 million. That's a huge population. That's a lot of potential that we have within the digital space in terms of delivering digital services and digital products. So I will ask my first question to Pauline and Sheila. When we talk about the customers, the next gen customer and the customer of the customer transformation era, who are we referring to?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Are you in the room? We always ask that, when you call the contact center, there's dead air. So you're like, is there somebody there? Is there somebody? So I'm asking, are you here? Anyway, on a lighter note, allow me to take you on a CX journey. CX, acronyms we'll teach you today. CX is customer experience. Imagine a world in which banks are seen as key actors in solving some of the biggest challenges facing society, rather than as a source of them. What do I mean? We have this acronym where we have this saying that leave no man behind. So the Gen X are not unique. They're just, I look at it and say, they're a different breed based on the need. When you look at a corporate customer, their needs are very different. If you look at the needs of somebody at the age of 50 plus, needs are different. But when you look at this next gen, this young population which is coming, remember, majority of them, especially the ones who were born later in the years, you find that they were born and they came into the era of mobile. That is the era they're used to. They're used to technology. So if you tell them not to operate without technology, they don't understand that language. So when we are creating solutions for this so-called next gen, is to make sure that we are tapping into where they are. And where are they? On their gadgets. True? The ones who have children and everything, what do you do to make your child keep quiet? You give them a gadget. We no longer give our children a ball to go and play outside or Legos to play. We give them gadgets. So this is the generation we are creating for. They're very smart. They're used to gadgets. So when we are looking at creating for them, these are the things we need to be looking at. Is it intuitive enough? Earlier on, there was a conversation with data. Is it intuitive enough that we know what they want at each step of the interaction they're interacting with the device? And we'll talk about predictive analysis as we go along. So let me hand over to Sheila.
Thank you, Pauline. That was quite an accurate description of who the Gen Z client is, or who our next or right now client is. So this is people, or rather a generation that we could call a microwave generation. They want it yesterday. They want it seamless. They want it now. And they want it just as they desire it. So this is a generation that is very specific on what they are looking for. They are very well knowledgeable. They are techies. They understand that this can be done in a quick, seamless manner. So the next generation client or the person that we are looking to serve right now is someone who is not willing to deal with any discomfort and also has a lot of options. So meaning they are just a click away from moving from your organization to the next. So in a nutshell, just to add to what Paulina said, this is a very sensitive, well-educated, well-informed generation or client that now we are required to serve and satisfy. So you can imagine the work that is cut out for us.
Awesome, Sheila. I think I could also add on to that. Part of the customer transformation, the customers who've been using this post-customer transformation era are you and me, who have had to adopt to technology very, very fast, especially post-COVID. And that same report shows us that adoption of mobile banking actually grew exponentially post-COVID. So that's, you and I also fall within that generation of people who are adopting technology right now. My next question is to Raju. Having that in mind then, why do you think it is important to then redefine the kind of customer journeys that we have within the customer experience space as we target these customers that we have defined?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's definitely different set of customers have different kind of preferences, as we've heard from the panel so far. If we just segregate them, there are digital natives like Gen Z and so on. That's one bucket, and they learn faster, they're younger, and they're born into that ecosystem. The second one is mobile first users. Like we said, the banking has been, so that could be another cohort of folks. And then the third one could be data-driven decision makers. Okay, people who have their teams or their organizations or the departments that they're running, they have a slightly different kind of responsibility. We could target that as a separate one. Their journey is going to be slightly different compared to the regular ones. And then, of course, mobile first users, which we just talked about, the 3 or 4 categories that might just help. Now, the key thing here is that everyone's attention span could be different. Their knowledge levels are different and so on. So how do you measure that? How do you make sure that the journey, the customer experience that is being provided is really being productive in the right way? So if you want to use metrics for that, here are some 2 or 3 things that you could use. The first one is 1/3 of the customers will abandon a brand with just one negative experience. Okay, now some of you may have a product that's more sticky, but this is as an overall of what customers have, what organizations have learned this. 1/3 of them just abandon with just one negative experience. The second one is the other side, which is more than 90% of customers tend to buy more than what they initially planned, provided you don't make them repeat anything that they have said or did so far in the customer journey. That's the second piece, which is we want more of this. Less of the first one, more of this. The third one is the expectations of the customers themselves. Now, the expectation is that when a customer goes into interacting with an organization through a channel, they expect themselves to be moved into other channels, as the case may be, seamlessly. That's expectation. About 70% of customers, more than 70% of customers expect this. And the final piece is, again, almost 70% will want the second or third interactions with the organizations to be personalized. They don't want it to be, high level, make it customization, make it personalized, hyper-personalized, or more relevant to me. So these are some of the things that will give us an indication on where these things are done, and therefore it's important to pay attention to make sure we don't make mistakes. Mistakes can be costly when they happen.
Thank you, Mr. Raju. Sheila, what's your opinion on the same?
What Raju is saying is true. You know, when we speak about customer experience, and I like to break it down to a very simple conversation. Today we've had speakers come here and talk about technical solutions, banking solutions. I happen to be from insurance, APA insurance. Everything that we are speaking about targets the customer who happens to be a human being. So sometimes in customer experience, what we do, and my panelists, I think, will agree with me, is we must narrow it down to what does this human being need? What is this human being looking to do? Or what are the goals of this human being? So if you want to work on this digital journey that we're talking about, the tech solutions that we have, AI, which is a buzzword now, and everyone has no option but to adopt, what is this customer looking for? So, as Raju has rightfully said, is that each set has different expectations, and from the data that we're able to collect, or actually the monitoring of these journeys, digital journeys, we are able to narrow down to what their desires are, where the drop-offs are. So this is what we refer to the gaps that we need then to address. But even before that, collaborating with the client and wanting to know what their journey how they would want their journey to look like. So simply asking a client, if you're ordering food online, what would you likely want to see? What would satisfy you? So addressing this journey from the point of awareness, making a decision, meaning how did they come to learn about your product? How did they interact with you? And then the purchase, how the purchase journey is online. Then talking about how then you retain them, what we were talking about, the retention, so that you're not losing customers from the bad experience. And then now turning this experience into advocacy. So walking the journey from the client's eyes, the client's shoes, to your organization, and making sure that they then are retained and become advocates of what you're offering. So that is the additional aspect to the conversation that we are having today. And I think if we get that journey right, from meeting the customer's need, then whatever we are discussing today then adds value to the organization. Then otherwise, then it will be a very segmented journey that then loses one aspect. And at the end of the day, you know, we have a dissatisfied customer with a very robust technical solution and data that cannot be translated into, some return on investment. So that is why the conversation today is very important from a customer's aspect. And this feeds to everything that the panelists will be discussing today.
Thanks, Sheila. And I think that also just puts us in a very unique position as CX people, because we get to see what the customer wants, and we get to also experience the technology side of it and try to make the technology work for the customer, because sometimes the technology starts and then tries to follow the customer, which in many cases that we can confidently tell you will not work. So we are in that unique position where we can actually see what does the customer want, and will this solution really then plug into what the customer wants. There is one of the speakers who talked about, I think it was Mr. Pramod, who talked about the loan process that he had looked at a number of our banks. And I think where digital then comes in is in such cases where how do we then shorten those processes through all the technology in the back? The day a mortgage will be released in 1 week, for me will be a big deal, because we deal a lot with property. And that has really been quite a bottleneck. So thank you so much, Sheila and Raju, on that. Pauline, I would like to ask you, just after looking at all that, what do you think are then some of the emerging technologies that are currently revolutionizing the customer experience space?
Majority of the technology that's coming up, it's moving so fast. And as somebody said that, yes, indeed, in the banking industry we are laggards, but we are catching up because it's demanded and required of us. So when you look at some of these technologies which are coming up, what are we trying to address? That's where that's our starting of the conversation. What are we trying to address? Are we trying to compete with each other? Are we trying to be the best in the market? So when we ask that question, what is our objective? The objective, actually, it's very simple in my eyes. It's the importance of everyday moments. There was a study which was done by an organization in the UK, John Lewis. And this study was called, I took notes here, it was called the Moments Economy. So when they're designing the experience for the customer, they look at where are we going to touch the customer based on the survey that they did. What is this customer looking for? COVID taught us to change the way we look at life. Now, more people are looking for more happiness, however that translates. People are looking at what is my moment of magic. My moment of magic, depending on which generation you are or where you are in the cycle of life, will determine what we should be designing. Somebody may be saying, at this point in time in my life, I'm more interested in a mortgage. I'm more interested in education products. So defining where this customer is and designing what it is and where they are is what is going to now make the difference. So what are some of the technologies, emerging technologies? AI is big right now. We can't run away from it. Within the customer experience space, we have a lot of this evolvement of chatbots. And one thing I'd like to tell people is that these chatbots, they need us to feed the data. Otherwise, garbage in, garbage out. So the loop will keep going in the loop and the customer is like, I'm not getting served. So it's important that we are looking at chatbots which provide instant service. For example, they're 24/7. So they can work while you're not there. So there's that aspect of it for the repetitive interactions. So that's one. There's augmented reality, where you're using augmented reality to provide virtual tours. So if you're in the real estate space, you want to provide virtual tours as you're enticing the customer to buy the product. So that's something that's emerging quite a bit. There's Internet of Things, IoT, allows of collective data. This is around where devices are tracking what you're doing. For example, the iPhone watch, it will track your health, your blood pressure, etc. So those are some of the emerging technologies. Another one is around voice assistant. Voice assistant, and that's something which is picking up I say it's something that needs to pick up in Kenya. Why? In developed markets, when it comes to people with disability, they have enabled that technology every time they're interacting either with the ATM or on phone, etc. We are not there yet. There lies the opportunity to enhance that. We've started some work together with Central Bank of Kenya, but we have not moved as fast as we would like to be. Another one, which is a favorite of mine, is around robotic process automation, RPA. When you look at RPA, what does it do? It automates repetitive instructions. So with that, you're able to turn around the service very quickly, SLA is met, customer is happy. Another one, which is a benefit to the organization, the staff are more productive because they're doing value-added services. So instead of doing the repetitive work, they're doing value-added services. That's something which is it's something that all the institutions need to be on board with. Not many are. Usually it works when you have a lot of processes. Maybe you have many branches or many cross-country businesses, etc. So that works really well. I'm not going to get into data analytics. Interesting enough, in customer experience, we can't function without data. So it's the customers telling us what they want through feedback surveys, etc. It's using the CRM system. CRM system will have predictive analysis in terms of what is the next best offer for this customer. Yes, right now they open an account. When you look at their profile, their transactions, maybe we can offer them a mortgage, unsecured, at X amount of money. So that is where we need to be getting to, so that we're at the same level, or not at the same level. We're at par in terms of customer interactions like the telcos are. Telcos know what you're doing next. And if you abandon a transaction in the middle, they will queue a message to you telling you to continue the transaction. Do you need help? etc. So those are some of the things that I'd bring out to the table, definitely.
Thank you so much, Pauline. I think that also brings to mind for me a conversation I had with a friend from a local bank where they actually implemented the chatbot. And what it was able to do for them was it was able to reduce their call center traffic by more than 30%. So that means, therefore, even the cost of service becomes lower, and you're able to achieve cost reduction and growth in revenue. So you're able to correlate the benefit to the organization through implementation of such technology. Mr. Raju, I think your organization also deals with some of these technologies. What do you think? What can you highlight as some of those emerging technologies over and above what Pauline has talked about?
Yeah, so I think she covered most of it anyway. But what we are also noticing is that there's disruption happening on the business models as a result of these technologies put together by different organizations. Now, how does that translate into successful or unsuccessful? Unsuccessful part is the ecosystem play that we are seeing. What is an ecosystem play? Now, if you're a bank, a financial institute, or one of these companies, you know that there is a big trend going on with super apps. Okay? And in the next 4 years, 2027, Gartner thinks more than 50% of worldwide population is going to be using a super app every day. Okay, now what's going on inside is some of the technologies that we just heard from Pauline, and that's different industries and departments will probably use different ones. But what actually goes on the inside is all these financial institutions have a mechanism to pay, the credit cards. There are a variety of payment, the wallets, and so on and so forth. That's one piece of the puzzle. Okay, now but that's not enough by itself. In order for the money to be spent, you need a level of sophistication at the marketplace where that money can be spent. Okay, think of it like merchants, and merchants could be anybody, and then offers that the merchants give, which is the second pillar of this whole thing. Now, some organizations have these things ready, some of them don't have, some of them have it, but not really functional. So depending on where they are, they need to start moving up from there using some of these technologies. And the third part is once you have these two in place, it's easy to set up 10 offers or 100 offers or 1,000 offers, but how do you personalize them to make it relevant? Somebody is interested in Thai food, you don't want to be sending him a McDonald's advertisement. You don't want to be doing that, but that happens a lot, which is a lot of waste of resources, time, effort, and all those things. So why do you want to be? So the third one is hyper-personalization. And the fourth one is to club all these things together to make it executable, to execute it very well. So these are the 4 tiers. Now, the super apps, in order to get this right, or any disruption to get this right, needs to have all these 4 wheels. It's like a car or any other vehicle where if you have all 4 wheels, only then it'll work. If you have 3 wheels, it's not 75% ready. You don't want to drive that car. So it's almost zero. So not the incremental variations in each of these. Sure, that could improve. You can have better shock absorbers and you can have other things. But you got to have all these things working in a synchronous fashion. I'll just give you one example. Something similar that we've experienced in another country, not in Africa. This is in Asia, but it has some relation or somewhat similar variables such as what we are seeing here in terms of bankable and unbankable individuals or population. This is in Myanmar. So there were, in the country at the time, when I last checked, there were about 16 wallets that every company, some telcos and others are using. And then there's this bank which starts as a new payment called KBZ Pay, that's the name of the bank. And they started it just before the pandemic, perfect timing. And within 2 years after they started, they moved from 0, literally, to 9.5 million customers in just 2 years. And they became overwhelmingly the biggest user of that. Now, what they did right is not just to put a very different wallet. The features are almost the same. But what they did was to identify where those individuals were, those customers were, and that sort of a thing, and then clubbed it with all the merchants. There were 350,000 merchants that were plotted together, made sure that then is overlaid with the individuals, and then they used to run the personalization part in order to make sure that wallet is getting used and it is being fed with the right offers by the right merchants to the right people, and it becomes a virtuous cycle as a result of that. So that connection is very important, and that's what a lot of these new disruptions are happening with the technologies that Pauline just mentioned at the core of some of these things.
Thank you so much. So that goes to show the technology actually came to meet the need, hence the accelerated growth. Awesome. Sheila, I'd want to ask you a question around this. What are some of the challenges then do we see ourselves expecting in the digital transformation journeys, and what are some of those solutions then we can propose for that?
Okay. So the first obvious challenge is cost. These solutions are not cheap. So that means very heavy discussions with our CFOs, trying to justify a return on investment. And everyone in the room knows that's not a very comfortable conversation. So the cost of implementing some of these solutions is expensive. Secondly is buy-in, meaning how then do you get your customers to use such solutions? And that's why we are talking about making the solutions address a need. A quick example is at APA. We realized that people struggle with paying their yearly insurance because the cost is sometimes slightly high, and considering the economic status in the country, there's a bit of a struggle. So through our digital team, we came up with Bima Bamba. So this is where you're able to pay for your insurance on a monthly basis. And you can imagine what that sounds to a client who's struggling. So you still have your insurance, but you're paying it at a paced, a paced arrangement rather. And then the other thing is you need to also add value, not to only the client, but also your partners. For example, now in insurance, we have an ability to onboard agents through our digital platforms as you would in banks with mobile banking. So this makes the experience very quick, the data quite neat, and very, the integrity of the data, because now, the systems are able to sieve out things that you don't require. So to make sure that the other challenge is if you don't do that, then you will have very little buy-in, and then the adoption will be a challenge because no one is going to pick up or take up a solution that does not add value to them. And then there is the UX. Sometimes we leave this the structuring and the implementation to the tech team, who then don't understand that sometimes the final agent is the one using this technology. So let's talk about an omnichannel or a CRM. How easy is it to use it? So unless you are looking at the user experience as well, then you will have challenges. So there are challenges with some of the solutions that we have. And sometimes in our companies, we have a lot of systems that we don't use. And when you ask, it's because they are very difficult to use. So the challenge there is you need buy-in. It needs to be simple to use, needs to be appealing to the buyer, and adds value actually to the final client. So that way then we will start seeing a lot of, adoption picking up in this area. So those are some of the challenges and the solutions around it.
Thank you, Pauline.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that, just to piggyback right on what Sheila is saying. Another very critical part is around the training. How are we providing this training? Are we providing training that is through an LMS system that is self-guided? So transferring the knowledge responsibility to the individuals. That's one. The other challenge we're facing, or we could face, is that as much as there's a lot of disruption, do we have the capacity? Capacity building becomes an issue when technology is moving very fast. So how do you make, when you're doing that adoption, making people, winning people over, those two elements must go hand in hand in terms of how we are providing the training on a digital environment, which is easy to understand, and also capacity building. Capacity building, how do we do that? By reaching out to the universities, for example, and now starting to, it's almost like you're mentoring them, coaching them to get into the work environment so that they become the capacity that you are now transferring to the organization. So that's what I'd add to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pauline. And
just a final one. There's also the security element, which I think all of us are very nervous about, as we saw just a couple of weeks ago with the CEO of ChatGPT talking about the fear around the data and the technology. So there is also a challenge of data privacy and misuse of data by bad actors. And how we then get to deal with that is hoping we have companies, research companies, data analysts actually going in and assuring us that, you know, the integrity of the data, and our organizations through our data protection departments making sure that the client data is safe. And that way then we can get a lot of comfort from our clients knowing that their data is safe with us, and then there is a good relationship in regards to sharing data that then helps us adopt these solutions that will add value.
All right, thank you so much, Sheila. And I think talking about safety, there's this whole discussion of data privacy. I think Clive has taken us through that. So we are always conscious of that at the back of our minds. How do we make sure that even as we do hyper-personalization of products and all that, how are we protecting our customers? Because we have to report to the data commissioner every now and then about that. So we have to keep it safe. And then user acceptance of the solutions that are provided. So sometimes we encounter solutions that might be good, but they are so hard for the user, so they get rejected. It could provide a solution, but it gets rejected. If I have to log into my machine, and to log in I have to get an SMS, and the SMS I have to get an email, multi-factor authentication taken to the extreme, you know, it just gets rejected by the users at the end of the day, so it doesn't sort the problem. So I think from the CX space, that would be our feedback around that. Then my final question maybe to the panelists. Okay, Ram is saying no. One last comment then from each of the panelists. Maybe we can just do a closing comment around this topic even as we wind down. We can start with you, Mr. Raju.
Yes, closing remarks.
Closing remarks. So, you know, obviously there is data that everyone has. There's this access, etc., that's provided from time to time. As the previous panel has discussed, that's one part. The next stage is to organize that data into a meaningful way for every individual officer that's doing a certain function. The key aspect to that is to separate the noise from the signals. Okay, there's so much data, you can easily confuse with what that. So, you know, even if 4 different individuals on the same bank are there, what they're thinking is, you know, the critical data elements for one may not be the critical ones to the other. If we find a way to separate noise from signals, and we zoom in and zoom out to the right level of detail and eliminate the unwanted stuff, then every individual officer would be able to deliver their job a lot better than others. And, you know, that's where the AI and ML really is embedded inside that, and they learn and they improve over time. So that's my final comment.
Thank you, Mr. Raju. Sheila?
My comment would be AI technology are tools, and these tools have to be used to meet a customer's need. And a customer is a human being. So we must find a balance where the AI tools can meet the human need. So we should not then forget that these are tools that are supposed to meet a human need. So that balance is what we should be looking out for, and then we will definitely get it right.
Thank you, Pauline.
For me, I would say collaboration. We all need each other to make this work for that customer. Customer is at the center of everything that we do, and that's what customer centricity is. Are we putting the customer at the center of every design that we're doing, etc.? So when we have the fintechs, the IT teams, we need to start talking to each other, get the insights and have the conversations with the people who actually serve the customers. They'll be able to provide more insight rather than relying heavily just on technology and the strategy. Let's have the conversation. Having the conversation and say, we are customer obsessed. What does that mean for us as an institution, and how are we taking it forward? And that's what I'd say. And as we build, whatever we're building, we're building with the intention that we need to empower the customer. So let's start with the customer first. Define the persona, then we now come together and say, this is what the customer wants, and let's work towards that as a solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll close it up by saying, indeed, we love technology. We love all the solutions that are coming from technology because they've really sorted out our customers in a very, very big way. However, as we come up with the technology, let us have simple solutions, usable solutions, secure solutions for our customers at the end of the day. Thank you so much.
A big round of applause for this powerful panel. I think we wonderful. Smile for the camera, Sheila. A big round of applause for Mr. Raju. I wish I could steal it.